Velthar stood at the observation deck of the Eternal Witness, his 4 eyes focused on the darkness of space. He had lived for 3,000 years. In that time, he had watched empires rise and fall. He had documented wars that consumed entire star systems. He had seen species fight with honor, with cunning, with desperation, but he had never seen what he was about to witness. The ship hummed quietly around him. It was built for one purpose: to watch. The ascended Concordat never fought in wars. They recorded them. For 50,000 years, his people had been the galaxy's historians, the keepers of memory. When civilizations wanted to know how their ancestors fought and died, they came to the Concordat. Velthar took pride in his work. Truth mattered. History mattered. Today, he would record humanity's first major battle in the Galactic Wars. He pulled up the tactical display. The numbers made him feel a familiar sadness. The Kravik swarm had come to the outer colonies like a plague. 2,000 ships, maybe more. They were insect-like creatures, driven by a hive mind that knew only hunger and expansion. 12 species called these colonies home. All of them were in danger. The Allied defense fleet had already begun to fall apart. The Methics had pulled back their cruisers. The Torvan commanders declared the battle unwinnable. Even the proud Yulmara, who valued honor above life itself, had started a tactical retreat. It made sense. Every military computer in the galaxy said the same thing. Defending these colonies would cost more than they were worth. Everyone was leaving. Everyone except the humans. Velthar checked his display again. The Terran defense fleet consisted of 40 ships against 2,000. He felt a deep sympathy for them. Humans were so young. They had only joined galactic civilization 200 years ago. They were still learning how the universe worked. They still believed in foolish things like last stands and glorious sacrifices. The observation team behind him worked quietly. There were 5 of them, all Concordat historians. They had set up recording equipment throughout the system. Every angle would be captured, every transmission would be saved. One day, other species would study this battle and learn from humanity's mistakes. "The human fleet is approaching," said Krenval, one of the junior observers. "They're not slowing down." Velthar turned to look at the tactical display. The young observer was right. The human ships were accelerating. 40 small dots on the screen, moving toward a swarm of red. It looked like moths flying into a fire. "Should we move to a safer position?" Krenval asked. His voice held worry. "We're far enough away," Velthar replied. "The Kraviks won't notice us. They never do." He had watched the Kraviks fight before. They were efficient killers, but not creative ones. They swarmed, they overwhelmed, they consumed. The Concordat's stealth technology made the Eternal Witness invisible to their simple sensors. A transmission came through on the open channel, a human voice speaking in Galactic Common. The translator made it smooth and clear. "This is Admiral Deho of the Terran Defense Fleet. All Allied ships, we understand your retreat. We hold no judgment. But we're staying. The outer colonies are home to 3 million humans. We won't abandon them." Velthar had read about Admiral Deho, 53 years old by human counting, a veteran of several small conflicts, decorated for bravery. Humans put great value on bravery. Most species learn to put greater value on wisdom. The Admiral's voice continued. "To the Kravik swarm, if you can understand me. You picked the wrong species to hunt." Velthar felt surprised. Was that a threat? Did the Admiral truly not understand the situation? 40 ships, 2,000 enemies. The mathematics were simple. The outcome was certain. Something else came through the channel. Music. Humans were playing music. "What is that?" Krenval asked. Velthar listened. The sound was rhythmic, with heavy drums and strings. Human war music, perhaps. He had heard that humans used music for many things: celebration, mourning, apparently even for battle. It's a human cultural practice, Velthar explained. They believe music strengthens their resolve. Does it work? No, Velthar said. It just makes them feel better before they die. But the music kept playing, and stranger still, he could hear humans laughing over the channel. Laughing. He had documented thousands of battles. He had never heard laughter before combat. Fear? Yes. Anger? Certainly. Grim determination? Often. But laughter? Sir, I'm picking up multiple transmissions between human ships, another observer reported. They're telling jokes. Velthar moved to the communication station. He listened to several channels. The observer was correct. Human crew members were sharing humorous stories, making light of their situation. One ship's captain told a story about a previous battle that had gone wrong. The crew laughed at the memory of their near-death experience. This was unusual behavior. Velthar made a note in his record. Perhaps humans used humor as a psychological defense mechanism. When faced with certain death, they tried to maintain morale through comedy. It was illogical, but many species had illogical traditions. The Kravik's fleet began to move. The swarm shifted, preparing to engage. Velthar had seen this pattern before. They would surround the enemy, cut off all escape routes, then crush them from every direction. It was effective because it was simple. The human fleet did not scatter. They formed a tight formation, almost like a spear pointing at the heart of the swarm. Again, Velthar felt confused. Every tactical manual said to spread out when facing superior numbers. Concentration of forces only worked if you had the advantage. They're going to charge, Krenval whispered. They're actually going to charge directly at the swarm. Velthar said nothing. He simply watched. His job was to observe, not to judge. But in his long life, he had learned to recognize patterns. He knew what happened when small fleets faced large ones. The small fleet either ran or died. There was no third option. Admiral Deho's voice came through again. This time he wasn't speaking to the Kraviks. He was speaking to his own people. All ships, this is Deho. I won't lie to you. The odds are bad. A lot of us won't make it home. But here's what I know. Behind us are 3 million people who are counting on us. Not hoping we'll win. Not praying we'll save them. Counting on us. Because that's what humans do. We show up when everyone else runs. We stand when everyone else falls. So let's show this swarm what humanity means. The channel erupted with human voices, thousands of them, shouting in agreement. The sound gave Velthar an odd feeling in his chest. He couldn't name it. Ready weapons, the Admiral ordered. All ships, advance. Let's go to work. The 40 human ships accelerated. The Kravik swarm moved to meet them. 2,000 against 40. Velthar activated all recording systems. Whatever happened next, the galaxy would remember. He would make sure of it. The music kept playing, the humans kept laughing, and the distance between the fleets grew smaller with each passing second. May you die with honor, Velthar whispered, speaking words of respect in his own language. It was all he could offer them. The first weapons fired. The battle had begun. The Kraviks opened fire first. Velthar watched as thousands of biomissiles streaked through space, leaving trails of green chemical fire. It was their standard opening move. Overwhelm the enemy with volume, make them panic, force them to break formation. The human ships did not break formation. Instead, they tightened it. The 40 vessels moved closer together, their shields overlapping. The missiles hit like a wave crashing against a rock. Explosions lit up the darkness. Velthar's instruments registered massive energy releases. Several human ships took direct hits. 3 human vessels severely damaged, Krenval reported. They're falling back. But Velthar saw something else. The damaged ships weren't retreating. They were moving to the center of the formation, protected by their companions. The healthy ships had moved to the outside, taking the hits meant for the wounded. No, Velthar corrected. They're not falling back. They're being protected. This was unusual. Most species abandoned damaged vessels during combat. It was logical. A damaged ship couldn't fight effectively. It became a liability. But humans were pulling their wounded into the formation's heart, shielding them with their own bodies. The human fleet continued to advance. They were moving faster now, accelerating directly into the swarm. Velthar checked the tactical display 3 times, certain he was reading it wrong. No commander charged into a swarm. It violated every principle of space combat. "They're going to be surrounded," one of the observers said. "Don't they understand?" Admiral Deho's voice came through the channel. "All ships, prepare for knife-fighting range. Minji, take your destroyers through the left flank. Hayuk, you've got the right. I'm going straight down the middle. Make them regret coming here." The human formation split into 3 groups. The Kravik's swarm moved to envelop them, just as Velthar expected. But something strange happened. The human ships didn't try to escape the envelopment. They used it. Captain Minji's destroyer, the Defiant, dove into a cluster of Kravik's fighters. Velthar watched as she performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. The Defiant spun, rolled, and twisted through the enemy formation. Her weapons fired in all directions, but more importantly, her movement caused the Kravik's ships to collide with each other. "She's using their numbers against them," Velthar said aloud. "Brilliant." The Kravik's fought as a swarm. They relied on overwhelming numbers and coordinated attacks. But in close quarters, those numbers became a weakness. There were too many of them in too small a space. When they tried to target the Defiant, they hit their own ships instead. Captain Minji's voice came through the channel. She was laughing. Actually laughing while her ship took fire from a dozen directions. "That's 12! Who's keeping count? I'm going for 20! Other human voices responded, shouting numbers, making it into a competition. They were keeping score. During a battle for survival, they were keeping score like it was a game. Velthar's species did not understand games. The Concordat had evolved past such things millions of years ago, but he was beginning to see why humans still played them. Games taught competition. Competition taught aggression, and aggression, properly directed, won battles. The Defiant lost its shields. Weapons fire raked across its hull. Velthar expected Captain Minji to retreat. Instead, she accelerated toward the largest Kravik's ship in her sector. "Minji, your shields are gone," Admiral Deho said. "Pull back." "Negative, Admiral. I've got one more move." The Defiant fired all weapons at the Kravik's ship's engines. The shots hit perfectly. The enemy vessel's power core destabilized. Captain Minji pulled her ship away at the last second. The Kravik's ship exploded, taking 6 others with it. "That's 20, Minji shouted. "New record." Her crew cheered. They cheered while their ship burned, while alarms screamed, while the hull leaked atmosphere into space. Velthar didn't understand it, but he recorded it. Commander Hyuk's group was having similar success on the right flank. His tactics were different. He used something humans called boarding actions. His ships launched small attack craft filled with soldiers. The craft attached themselves to Kravik's vessels and cut through the hulls. Velthar had never seen anyone board a Kravik's ship. The Kravik's used biological weapons inside their vessels. The air was toxic. The walls secreted acid. It was a death sentence to enter one. But the human soldiers went in anyway. Velthar accessed a camera feed from one of the boarding craft. He watched as a human named Jiwon, a marine corporal, led her squad through a hole they had cut in the Kravik's hull. They wore sealed armor, carried heavy weapons, and moved with practiced efficiency. The inside of the Kravik's ship was a nightmare. Organic walls pulsed with life. The air was thick with spores. Kravik's warriors waited in the darkness, their blade arms ready. The fight was brutal. Velthar had documented many ground battles, but this was different. The humans didn't fight carefully. They fought with a fury that seemed to surprise even the Kraviks. When one soldier fell, another took his place. When their weapons ran empty, they used the weapons as clubs. Corporal Jiwan's voice came through the feed. "Plant the charges on the power node! Move, move, move!" Her squad fought their way to the ship's central chamber. They placed explosive charges on the glowing organic structure that powered the vessel. Kravik's warriors swarmed them from all directions. 3 human soldiers fell, then 4, then 5. Velthar sent a long-range communication request. To his surprise, Corporal Jiwan answered even as she fought. "This is Velthar of the Concordat. I'm observing your battle. May I ask you a question? Make it quick." Jiwan fired her weapon, cutting down 2 Kraviks. "We're a little busy." "Why are you here? You could have retreated with the other species. Why do humans fight battles they cannot win?" Jiwan laughed. It was not a happy sound. "You don't get it. We don't fight to survive. We fight to win. There's a difference." "But the odds? I don't care about odds." She ducked under a Kravik's blade arm and shot the creature in its face. "Behind us are 3 million people, families, children, old folks who can't fight for themselves. You want to know why we're here? Because if we're not, who will be?" The charges were set. Jiwan's squad ran for the exit. Only 3 of them made it out. The boarding craft detached just as the explosives detonated. The Kravik's ship tore itself apart from the inside. "This is Jiwan. Objective complete. We're coming home," Commander Hyuk's voice responded. "Good work, Corporal. Rest up. We've got 6 more ships that need the same treatment." "Yes, sir. Ready when you are." Velthar closed the communication. He looked at the tactical display. The humans had destroyed over 100 Kravik's ships, but they had paid a terrible price. 20 of their 40 ships were gone or critically damaged. Their casualties must be enormous. Any logical commander would retreat now. They had done enough. They had proven their courage. No one would judge them for leaving. Admiral Deho gave new orders. "All remaining ships, reform on me. We're pushing deeper, deeper, not back, deeper into the swarm." "This is madness," Krenval whispered. Velthar said nothing. He watched as a human ship called Soul's Pride struggled to keep pace. Its engines were failing. Life support was critical. The ship was dying. The ship's commander, Hyuk from the earlier boarding operations, opened a channel. "Admiral, Soul's Pride is done. Engines are gone. We're drifting." "Abandon ship, Commander. We'll pick you up." There was a pause. Then Hyuk spoke again. "Negative, sir. I've got a better idea. Seal all the bulkheads. Give me 1 minute." "Hyuk, don't—" "1 minute, Admiral." "That's an order." The Soul's Pride changed course. It turned toward the largest Kravik ship in the sector, a massive hive vessel that coordinated attacks for hundreds of smaller craft. Hyuk fired all remaining thrusters. The dying ship accelerated. Velthar understood immediately. He's going to ram it. The crew of the Soul's Pride had seconds to evacuate. Most didn't try. Velthar watched as human crew members stayed at their stations, guiding their ship on its final course. Commander Hyuk's last transmission was simple. For Earth. For the colonies. For everyone watching who thinks we can't do this. The Soul's Pride hit the hive ship at full speed. Both vessels exploded in a flash of light that temporarily blinded the observation sensors. When the display cleared, Velthar counted the destruction. The hive ship was gone. 17 other Kravik's vessels had been caught in the explosion. 1 human ship had traded itself for 18 enemy vessels. The human channel was silent for a moment. Then Admiral Deho spoke. "Hyuk was my friend for 20 years. He just showed us how to win this fight. All ships, if you're too damaged to continue, you know what to do. Make it count. 3 more human ships turned toward enemy formations. Their crews had made their choice. Velthar realized he was witnessing something the galaxy had never seen. These humans weren't fighting to survive. They had crossed some invisible line where survival stopped mattering. They were fighting to win no matter the cost. And the terrifying thing was, their insane tactics were working. The battle had been raging for 6 hours. Velthar's eyes hurt from staring at displays. He had watched hundreds of battles in his long life, but none like this. The humans should be dead by now. By every calculation, every tactical model, every historical precedent, they should be destroyed. Instead, they were winning. The Kraviks had lost 400 ships. The humans had lost 32 of their original 40. 8 ships remained, all damaged, all running on emergency power. By any reasonable measure, both sides should retreat. But neither did. Velthar needed to understand. He opened his database and searched for information about human military history. The files were extensive. 200 years of contact had given the Concordat much data about this young species. He started with their home world, Earth, a planet with no natural predators for the dominant species. This fact alone made them unique. Every other species in the galaxy had evolved alongside creatures that hunted them. The Yulmara had the sky serpents. The Torvan had pack hunters in their jungles. Even Velthar's own people, the Concordat, had once feared the deep ocean predators of their world. But humans had been the apex predator of Earth for over 100,000 years. Nothing hunted them. They hunted everything else. Velthar read deeper. Human history was filled with war. They had fought each other constantly, tribe against tribe, nation against nation, ideology against ideology. They had developed weapons capable of destroying their own planet, then chose not to use them. That restraint spoke of wisdom. But their warfare spoke of something else entirely. He found records of human battles, ancient ones, fought with primitive weapons. The humans had a concept called last stands, situations where a small force held ground against impossible odds, knowing they would die, but fighting anyway to give others time to escape. This concept appeared again and again throughout their history. Most species had a breaking point, a moment when survival instinct overrode all other concerns, when a soldier's body simply refused to continue fighting. Velthar had seen it countless times. It was natural. It was logical. It kept species alive. Humans had this instinct too. But they could override it. Through training, through culture, through sheer will, they could force themselves to keep fighting even when their bodies screamed at them to run. "Sir, we're receiving multiple new signals," Krenval announced. "Ships entering the system." Velthar looked up from his research. "Kravik's reinforcements?" "No, sir. Human ships. Dozens of them." The tactical display updated. Velthar counted the new arrivals. 47 ships. But something was wrong. Their profiles didn't match military vessels. "Those are civilian ships," he said, confused. "Mining vessels, transports. That one appears to be a colony supply ship." "They're armed," Krenval reported. "Crude weapons, mounted externally. They're moving to join the battle." This made no sense. Velthar opened a communication channel to the nearest civilian ship. A human male appeared on the screen. He wore a miner's uniform, not military armor. His name tag read Taman. "This is Velthar of the Concordat. You're entering a war zone. You should evacuate immediately." Taman looked at him with calm eyes. "No offense, friend, but we know where we are. Your ship is not built for combat. You'll be destroyed." "Maybe, but we're here anyway." "Why?" Velthar asked. The question came out more desperate than he intended. "This isn't your fight. You're civilians." Taman smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. "You don't understand. This is exactly our fight. The Kraviks attacked our people. Our families live in those colonies. You think we're going to sit back and hope the military saves us? That's not how humans work. Another voice came through the channel, a woman, broadcasting from a different ship. This is Captain Borum of the civilian transport Morning Star. We've got 300 passengers on board. They all voted. Unanimous decision. We're fighting. I'm Dr. Yuna on the medical ship. Mercy's hand, another voice added. I've got 6 patients in critical care. They insisted we come, said they'd rather die helping than live running. More voices joined in. Engineers, miners, teachers, farmers. All of them had armed their ships with whatever weapons they could find. All of them were flying toward a battle that had already consumed 32 military vessels. Velthar tried to find words. He had no words. Admiral Deho's voice cut through the chatter. Civilian fleet, this is Admiral Deho. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I can't allow it. You're not trained for this. Please, turn back. With respect, Admiral, no, Taman replied. You don't get to order us around. We're not military. We're just people who are tired of running. You'll get yourselves killed. Then we die protecting our homes, better than dying as refugees. The civilian ships continued their approach. The Kraviks, sensing new targets, shifted their formation. They began moving toward the weaker, unarmored vessels. Lieutenant Borum's fighter shot forward. She had been in continuous combat for 7 hours, her ship barely holding together. But she positioned herself between the Kraviks and the civilian fleet. All civilian ships, this is Lieutenant Borum. Follow my lead. Stay in formation. Don't try to be heroes. We do this together or not at all. Her voice had changed. The laughter was gone. This was the voice of someone who had seen too much death, who was too tired to feel fear anymore, who had only determination left. Velthar watched as the civilian ships formed up behind Borum's fighter. They moved clumsily, their formations imperfect, their weapons poorly aimed. But they moved with purpose. The Kraviks hit them first. A mining ship exploded, its hull never designed to take military-grade weapons. Then a transport went dark, its life support failing. The civilians should have broken, should have run. Instead, they returned fire. Taman's mining ship carried industrial cutting lasers. He aimed them at a Kravik's fighter's engines. The laser, designed to cut through asteroids, sliced through the fighter's armor like paper. The Kravik's ship died. That's one, Taman shouted. Who's next? The civilian fleet spread out, each ship looking for targets. They had no training, no tactics, no experience. What they had was anger and desperation, and a stubborn refusal to give up. Velthar realized something that made his blood run cold. The Kraviks had been fighting 8 military ships. Now they faced 55 vessels, military and civilian combined. The humans had just tripled their numbers. This changes everything, Krenval whispered. Velthar nodded slowly. He returned to his database, searching for more information. He found a human military theorist from their ancient history, a man who had written about total war. The concept was simple. In total war, there were no civilians. Everyone became a combatant. Most species found this concept horrifying. Civilized warfare had rules. Civilians were protected. Combatants and non-combatants were clearly separated. To blur that line was barbaric. But humans didn't see it that way. When threatened, they didn't separate into fighters and non-fighters. They became a unified force, everyone contributing what they could. The civilians weren't becoming soldiers. They were civilians choosing to fight, which somehow made them more dangerous. Lieutenant Borum's fighter took a hit. Her shields were already gone, and the blast tore through her wing. The fighter spun out of control. "Borum's down!" someone shouted. "I'm okay." Borum's voice came through, strained. "Ship's not responding. Wait, I still have weapons. Engines are shot, but weapons still work." "Borum, eject," Admiral Deho ordered. "That's a direct order." "Negative, sir. I can still shoot. I can still fight." That's all that matters. She stabilized her spinning fighter using maneuvering thrusters. Her main engines were dead, but she could still aim her weapons. She became a stationary gun platform, firing at any Kravix ship that came within range. Other damaged human ships did the same. If they couldn't move, they became defensive positions. If they couldn't shoot, they used their mass as obstacles, forcing Kravix ships to fly around them, disrupting their formations. Velthar watched all of this and felt something he hadn't felt in 1,000 years. Not fear, exactly. The Concordat had evolved beyond simple fear, but something close to it. A recognition that he was watching something dangerous being born. He pulled up human cultural data. Their stories, their myths, their legends, they all followed similar patterns. Heroes who stood against impossible odds. Warriors who never surrendered. Ordinary people who found extraordinary courage when their backs were against the wall. These weren't just stories. This was their instruction manual. This was how humans taught their children what it meant to be human. Velthar understood now. Every other species had predators that taught them caution. Humans had no predators, so they taught each other. They taught courage through stories. They taught determination through games. They taught sacrifice through honoring those who gave their lives for others. They had weaponized their culture. "Sir, the Kravix are pulling back," Krenval reported. "Their formation is breaking." Velthar checked the tactical display. It was true. The swarm was fragmenting. Individual Kravix ships were retreating. The hive mind that controlled them must have calculated that victory was no longer certain. But humans didn't need certainty. They just needed a chance. Admiral Deho's voice rang out. "All ships, pursue! Don't let them regroup!" The battered human fleet, military and civilian alike, chased after the retreating Kravix. They were wounded, exhausted, running on fumes. But they chased, because that's what humans did. They never stopped coming. The battle ended after 14 hours. The Kravix swarm broke completely and fled into deep space. They left behind nearly 800 destroyed ships. The humans had won. Velthar counted the cost. Of the original 40 military ships, only 3 remained functional. 5 more drifted in space, their crews alive but their vessels dead. 32 ships were gone, vaporized or torn apart. The civilian fleet had fared worse. Of the 47 ships that had joined the fight, 21 were destroyed. The rest were damaged beyond immediate repair. But numbers didn't tell the full story. Numbers never did. The human casualties were staggering. 28,000 dead, 15,000 wounded. Some injuries were minor, many were not. Velthar had seen war, but this scale of loss in a single battle was unusual for such a small force. He requested permission to visit a human medical station. Admiral Deho approved. The Eternal Witness moved closer to the human fleet's position. Velthar took a shuttle to the medical ship Mercy's Hand, one of the civilian vessels that had survived. The docking process was chaotic. Damaged ships were everywhere, their hulls torn open, their systems failing. Emergency beacons filled the communication channels. Humans worked frantically to save anyone they could. When Velthar entered the medical ship, the smell hit him first. Blood, burned flesh, chemicals. His translator implant picked up human voices shouting medical terms, calling for equipment, coordinating surgeries. The corridor was filled with injured soldiers. Some sat against walls waiting for treatment. Others lay on stretchers, sedated or unconscious. A few walked around with bandages, helping those who couldn't move. A human woman noticed him. She wore a doctor's coat stained with blood. Her face showed exhaustion, her eyes red from lack of sleep. Her name tag read, Dr. Yuna. "You're from the Concordat," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes. I'm Velthar. I've been observing your battle. I wanted to understand this." He gestured at the wounded humans around them. Dr. Yuna nodded slowly. "Come with me. I'll show you what we're dealing with. She led him through the ship. Every room was filled with patients. The medical staff moved with practiced efficiency, but Velthar could see they were overwhelmed. There were simply too many wounded, too few doctors. They entered a surgery bay. A human soldier lay on the table, his chest open. Machines keeping him alive while doctors worked to repair damage to his heart. Dr. Yuna watched for a moment, then moved on. "That's his third surgery today," she said quietly. "He should be dead. But he's not, because we won't let him die." "You've been working for how long?" Velthar asked. 4 days, maybe 5. I've lost track." "You should rest," she laughed. It was a bitter sound. "Rest? Look around. These people fought for us. The least I can do is stay awake." They passed a room filled with Kravik's prisoners. Velthar stopped in surprise. "You're treating them?" "Of course. But they're enemies. They killed your people." Dr. Yuna looked at him with tired eyes. "They're wounded. That's all that matters right now. We fight like hell to win. But once it's over, we remember we're all just trying to survive." This confused Velthar. The Kraviks showed no mercy. They took no prisoners. They killed anything that wasn't part of their swarm, yet humans were treating their wounded with the same care they gave their own soldiers. "Your people are illogical," he said. "Maybe," Dr. Yuna replied. "But it's our kind of illogic." She brought him to a recovery ward. A young Marine sat in a bed, his legs missing below the knees. He was awake, talking to another soldier in the next bed. When he saw Dr. Yuna, he smiled. "Doctor, when can I get back on duty?" "Jinwoo, you just lost both legs. You're not going back on duty." The Marine, Jinwoo, shook his head. "That's temporary. I heard medical can fit me with cybernetic replacements. How long will that take?" "Months. Maybe a year." "That's fine. I'll be ready for the next fight." Velthar stared at the young soldier. "You want to return to combat? After this?" Jinwoo looked at him, confused by the question. "Why wouldn't I? I knew what I signed up for. I'd do it again. We all would." The soldier in the next bed nodded in agreement. She had bandages covering half her face. "My ship got hit, lost my eye and half my hearing. But I'm alive. That's more than a lot of people can say. When they fix me up, I'm going back." Velthar couldn't understand. These humans had been broken, their bodies destroyed, yet they spoke of returning to battle as if it were obvious, as if there were no other choice. Dr. Yuna led him away. "You want to know why we fight the way we do? It's because of people like Jinwoo. We don't see battle as a job. We see it as a duty, something we owe to each other." They reached the bridge. Admiral Deho was there, looking out at the damaged fleet. His uniform was torn. His face showed burns that hadn't been treated. He turned when they entered. "Velthar, I've seen your ship watching us, recording everything. That is my purpose, to observe, to document." "Then you saw everything, the good and the bad." "I saw unprecedented bravery," Velthar said carefully, "and unprecedented loss." Admiral Deho nodded. He moved to a window, looking at the debris field where so many ships had died. 32 ships, 32 captains who I knew personally. Some were friends, some were family. All of them are gone. Yet you won. Did we? The Admiral's voice was heavy. We saved the colonies. 3 million people will live because of what happened here. But 28,000 won't. Was that a victory, or just a choice between bad options? Velthar had no answer. In his 3,000 years, he had observed many commanders. Some celebrated victories, some mourned losses. Admiral Deho seemed to be doing both at once. "Why did you fight this way?" Velthar asked. "Every tactical analysis said you should retreat. You would have survived. The Concordat would not have judged you." "But we would have judged ourselves," Deho replied. That's the thing you don't understand. We don't fight for other species' approval. We fight because we can't live with ourselves if we don't. That philosophy will destroy you. Maybe. But it's kept us alive for hundreds of thousands of years. Every time humanity faced extinction, we fought back. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars that nearly wiped us out. You know why? Because we never accepted defeat. Ever. The Admiral turned to face Velthar. You want to know why we fight battles we can't win? Because sometimes we win them anyway. And when we don't, we make sure it costs the enemy so much that they think twice before fighting humans again. Velthar recorded every word. This was important. This was the key to understanding humanity. The Kravix will remember this, Deho continued. They came here thinking we were easy prey. They lost 800 ships trying to take one system. Now they know. Attacking humans isn't worth the cost. So this was a message. Everything we do is a message. We tell the galaxy, we're small, we're young, we're weak by your standards, but we're not prey. We're the species that fights back. Always. A communication officer approached. Sir, we're receiving messages from other species. The Yulmara want to talk. So do the Torvan. Even the Methics are reaching out. What do they want? They want to know if the Alliance still stands. They're asking if we need assistance. Admiral Deho smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Tell them we appreciate the offer. Tell them we'll remember who was here when it mattered. The officer left. Velthar understood the message. The species that had retreated before the battle would have to live with that choice. The galaxy would know they ran while humans stayed. You're making enemies, Velthar warned. No, we're making sure everyone knows where we stand. In this galaxy, you're either someone who fights for what they believe in, or you're someone who runs. We've chosen our path. Velthar looked out at the damaged fleet. Ships held together by emergency repairs. Crews running on stimulants and willpower. Thousands dead, thousands more injured. By any reasonable measure, this fleet was destroyed. But they had won. And more importantly, the galaxy had watched them win. I need to return to my ship, Velthar said. I have much to report. Tell them the truth, Admiral Deho said. Tell them what you saw. Tell them that humanity doesn't fight by the rules everyone else follows. Tell them we're dangerous. I will tell them everything. As Velthar left, he heard Admiral Deho give orders to begin repairs. They would rebuild, they would recover, and they would be ready for the next battle. Because humans were always ready for the next battle. 6 months had passed since the battle. Velthar stood before the Concordat Council, the most powerful beings in the galaxy. They sat in a chamber that floated in space, a structure older than most civilizations. 12 species were represented here, each one ancient beyond measure. Velthar had prepared his report carefully. He had reviewed every recording, every piece of data, every conversation. What he had witnessed needed to be understood clearly. The galaxy's future might depend on it. Honored Council, he began. I have completed my observation of humanity's engagement with the Kravix swarm. The title of my report is The Human Paradox, a species too dangerous to ignore, too necessary to contain. The council members shifted in their seats. Several looked interested. Others looked concerned. Elder Morvan, the oldest being present, spoke first. Velthar, you have observed warfare for 3,000 years. What makes this battle worthy of special attention? Everything, Velthar replied. In all my years, I have never seen a species fight like humans do. They don't follow our rules. They don't accept our logic. And that makes them either the greatest ally or the greatest threat the galaxy has ever known. He activated the holographic display. Images from the battle appeared. Floating in the center of the chamber, ships burning, humans charging into impossible odds, civilians joining military forces, damaged vessels ramming enemy ships. The battle statistics are simple, Velthar continued. 40 military ships faced 2,000 enemy vessels. By every calculation, they should have been destroyed in minutes. Instead, they won. But statistics don't explain why they won. He showed footage of Captain Minji's destroyer dancing through the Kravik swarm, using the enemy's numbers against them. He showed Commander Hyuk's ship crashing into the Hive vessel. He showed civilian miners fighting with industrial equipment. Humans fight with desperation, Velthar explained. But it's not the desperation of a cornered animal. It's the desperation of a species that has never had a natural predator. They evolved as apex hunters. Fear of being hunted isn't in their biology. Elder Tormek, representing the Yulmara, interrupted. All species feel fear. Humans are no different. You're correct, Velthar agreed. Humans feel fear. But they've learned to ignore it. They train themselves to override survival instincts. They celebrate individuals who sacrifice themselves for others. They teach their children that some things are worth dying for. He showed footage of the Marines boarding Kravik's ships, walking into toxic environments, fighting against impossible odds. He showed Lieutenant Borum continuing to fight even after her ship was crippled. Most species have a breaking point, Velthar said. A moment when biological imperatives override conscious choice, when survival becomes more important than anything else. Humans have this instinct too, but they can suppress it. Not sometimes, always. Given proper motivation, a human will fight until they literally cannot continue. And even then, they'll try. The council watched in silence as the footage continued. The civilian fleet arriving, ordinary humans arming whatever ships they could find. Taemin the miner using cutting lasers against military vessels. This is perhaps most disturbing, Velthar said. Humans don't separate their population into fighters and non-fighters. Every human is a potential warrior. Their civilians armed themselves and joined the battle without orders, without training, without hesitation. That's barbaric, Elder Nixaval said. Civilized species protect their civilians. Humans do protect their civilians, Velthar countered. But when threatened, their civilians refuse to be protected. They demand to fight. This isn't military doctrine. This is cultural imperative. He changed the display to show human history. Ancient battles, modern wars. The pattern repeated across millennia. Humanity has been fighting for its entire existence, Velthar explained. Not just against external threats, against each other. They've had hundreds of wars on their home planet alone. They've developed weapons capable of destroying their entire species, and they've learned to fight with a ferocity that evolution didn't give them, but that culture did. Elder Morvan leaned forward. You said they're dangerous. Explain. They improve rapidly, Velthar said. Every battle teaches them new tactics. Every loss makes them stronger. 6 months after the battle, I observed they've already adapted. They've studied Kravik's biology and developed new weapons. They've changed their ship designs based on what worked and what didn't. They're learning faster than any species I've documented. He showed recent footage of human training exercises. Their new tactics incorporated lessons from the battle. They were preparing for the next fight. But that's not the dangerous part, Velthar continued. The dangerous part is their bonds. Humans form attachments across genetic lines, cultural boundaries, even species. They adopt outsiders into their groups. They fight for people who aren't related to them. They die for ideas, not just for survival. That makes them weak, Elder Tormek said. Emotional attachment clouds judgment. Does it? Velthar asked. He showed footage of Dr. Yuna treating enemy wounded. Humans fought with absolute brutality, then immediately offered medical care to their enemies. This isn't weakness. This is control. They can switch between total war and total mercy instantly. The council members looked uncomfortable. Velthar pressed on. The question before us is simple. What do we do about humanity? They're expanding, they're getting stronger, and they fight in ways we don't understand. We should contain them, Elder Nixaval said. Restrict their territory, limit their military. That would make them enemies, Velthar warned, and I've seen what happens to humanity's enemies. He showed the final moments of the battle. The Kravix swarm breaking, 800 ships destroyed. The most successful invasion force in Kravix history, routed by a force 50 times smaller. The Kravix attacked human colonies expecting easy prey, Velthar said. Instead, they encountered a species that charged directly into their swarm, fought with no concern for casualties, and turned civilian miners into soldiers. The Kravix won't attack humans again. The cost is too high. So humans win through attrition, Elder Morvan observed. They accept terrible losses to achieve victory. No, Velthar corrected. They win through determination. Attrition assumes both sides lose forces at similar rates. Humans don't trade ships equally. They trade one ship for 10, one life for a dozen. They make every loss count for maximum damage. He paused, making sure the council understood. Here's what frightens me. Humanity sees this as normal. Admiral Deho mourned his losses, but he never questioned the decision to fight. The civilians who died never hesitated to join the battle. Every human I spoke with treated their actions as obvious, as if there were no other choice. They're fanatics, Elder Nixval said. No, Velthar replied. Fanatics fight for ideology. Humans fight for each other. That's more powerful. Ideology can be broken, but fighting for family, for friends, for the person standing next to you, that doesn't break. He changed the display one final time. It showed a message he had received 3 days ago. Lieutenant Borum had sent it from her new assignment. She had recovered from her injuries and was back on duty. Her message was simple. Thank you for documenting our fight. Make sure everyone sees it. Make sure they understand what happens when you threaten humans. The galaxy needs to make a choice, Velthar said. Humanity will either unite us or divide us. They're too powerful to ignore, too valuable to waste, and too dangerous to threaten. Elder Morvan spoke. Velthar, in all your years observing warfare, have you ever documented a species that cannot be conquered? The chamber fell silent. Every eye turned to Velthar. No, he said quietly, until now. Explain. Velthar chose his words carefully. Every species has a breaking point, a moment when the cost of fighting exceeds the value of winning, when survival becomes more important than victory. Humans have this calculus backwards. For them, some things are worth more than survival. And when you cross that line, when you threaten what they value most, they don't calculate odds. They don't measure costs. They simply fight until they win or until there's nothing left of them to fight with. He gestured to the recordings floating around the chamber. You can defeat human ships. You can kill human soldiers. But you cannot break human will. They'll keep coming. They'll adapt. They'll find new ways to fight. And they'll never, ever surrender what they value. Then they're unstoppable? Elder Tormek asked. No, Velthar replied. They can be stopped, but only by leaving them alone. Humans don't seek conquest, they seek peace. But their definition of peace includes being ready for war. Always. The council deliberated for hours. Velthar waited patiently. Finally, Elder Morvan spoke. We will not restrict humanity. We will not contain them. Instead, we will invite them to join the council as junior members. We will offer alliance, not limitation. Because as you've said, they're more valuable as allies than as enemies. Velthar bowed. A wise decision. Tell us, Velthar, after everything you've witnessed, what do you think humans will do next? Velthar considered the question. He thought of Admiral Deho, already rebuilding his fleet, of Dr. Yuna, still treating wounded regardless of species, of Lieutenant Borum returning to duty, of Jinwoo waiting for new legs so he could fight again. "They'll do what they always do," Velthar said. "They'll prepare for the next threat. They'll protect their people. They'll expand cautiously but determinedly. And if anyone threatens them again, they'll show the galaxy once more why humans don't retreat." He paused, then added quietly, "I watched humanity advance into battle. I watched them charge into a swarm that should have destroyed them. I watched them turn miners into warriors and turn certain defeat into impossible victory. And I understood in that moment why the stars tremble before them. They don't tremble because humans are invincible. They tremble because humans refuse to accept that they're not." The council session ended. Velthar returned to his ship. He would continue observing humanity, documenting their growth, recording their battles, because he knew with absolute certainty that there would be more battles. Humans were peaceful, but they were never pacifists, and the galaxy would have to learn the difference. In his quarters, Velthar added a final note to his report, a warning for future historians who might read his words. "If you encounter humanity, remember this. They're dangerous not because they're strong, but because they're stubborn. They're terrifying not because they can't be killed, but because they won't stay down. And they're unstoppable not because they always win, but because they never accept that they've lost. Approach them with respect. Offer them friendship, because the alternative is facing an enemy that will fight until the stars themselves burn out. And that's a fight nobody can win." He sent the report to the Concordat archives. It would be preserved for thousands of years. Future civilizations would read it and understand what Velthar had learned. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, and the galaxy would never be the same.